This recording is going to talk about compound interest from Chapter 16. Compound interest is using a simple interest formula, principal times rate times time, and to arrive at an interest amount, and then that interest amount is added on to the original principal. And this can be done over and over again for the length of time that that amount is in the bank or in a savings account. So when we're talking about future value, we're going to talk about the amount that a certain sum of money will be worth in the future if it has compound interest calculated. So to understand this, let's take a look at page 317, and you'll see on the spreadsheet that I have already written in here the present value. That means the amount that is being deposited into a savings account, and the rate that the interest is going to be calculated. And then this column called compounded means the number of times it's going to be compounded in a year. So if it's compounded monthly, that means it's going to be compounded 12 times. And you should go down and continue typing in these compounding periods. I like to use abbreviations, just makes it a little bit faster. So semi-annually is twice a year, quarterly is 4 times a year, and annually it would just be once a year. So now I have 4 different types of compounding periods here on the spreadsheet. And at this point, I'd like you to move your cursor over to the side here, because this next step is very important. For a rate of 6% that's compounded monthly, it's necessary for you to take 6% and divide it by 12, since there's 12 months in a year. And then you can change that to a percent. Be sure to add a couple of decimal places here, because as you can see, the spreadsheet will automatically round up to the next whole percent. So this is the percent we're going to look for when we look these things up on a chart to find the future value factor. The other thing you need to do is take a look at the number of years. In this case, it's 4 years over the life of this account, and how many compounding periods we're going to have. So this is going to be 4 times 12. So you're going to be looking at the future value chart, and right now I'd like you to take a look at the future value charts on page 326, and take a look at the 0.50% column and run your finger all the way down that column until you come to line 48. And you're going to see a factor there, or a number, and you can insert that directly into the future value cell here. First enter in an equal sign and then type the number just as you see it on the chart. So it's 1.27049, and all you need to do to calculate the future value is to take that number times the present value that you started with. And so this calculation then tells us that the future value of $6,000 in 4 years, if you have a 6% rate compounded monthly, is going to be $7,622.94. And how much of that is interest? Now just take the future value and subtract the present value. And we've done the first problem here. I'm going to just help you here on the next couple of problems. The next one is semi-annually, so that will be 6%. But now we're not dividing by 12 anymore, we're dividing by 2, because semi-annually is twice a year. Again, change it to a percent, add a couple decimal places to make sure it comes out even, and look back in your textbook then on page 317, and you'll see that we have 11 years. So 11 years at twice a year will be 11 times 2, and so the number of compounding interest periods that we have for problem number 2 is going to be 22. And that does not mean it's 22 years, it's still 11 years, but twice a year the compounding will be done. And so that leaves us with 22 interest calculations. The next one is quarterly. So we're going to take our 8%. This time we're going to divide it by 4. There's 4 quarters in a year. Again, change it to a percent. Add a couple of decimal places. And look on your page 317 to find out how long this is going to be in the account. It looks like 8 years. So let's put an 8 in that term cell. And then we're going to take 8 times 4 to find out how many interest calculations we're going to have. So there's going to be 32 interest calculations. Now when you have an annual compound interest, you do not need to do anything to the percent. It'll simply be 12%. And you don't need to do anything to the years. So 30 years is going to just stay over here 30 years. Alright, so now we've done one of each type here. One thing you will have to be cautious of is, for example, number 5. When you get down to number 5, it's not 18 years, it's 18 months. And so I would encourage you to type the word months in here so you're not thinking that it's 18 years. And it is compounded monthly, so I'm just going to put an M here for monthly. And when we do our conversion over here, we're going to take the 9% and we're going to divide it by 12. Change it to a percent, add a couple of decimal places. But over here where we're doing the number of times it's going to be compounded, I'm not going to do anything to the 18 months. It's already in months. We're already compounded monthly. So it's just going to be 18. So when you go to your future value chart, you're going to be looking down the 0.75% column down to line 18. Now if you're a spreadsheet guru, there is a spreadsheet formula that will calculate the future value for you, and you will be able to do all of these if you want to use that formula instead of looking it up on the chart. If you have a mathematical calculator, it will also do those calculations for you. But for our purposes here, I'm just teaching you how to use the future value chart. Once you finish the future value problems, I want you to scroll down here to 16.2 and turn in your textbook to page 321. This will be identical to what we did above, except you're starting with the future value, and what you're trying to find is the amount of the present value that you're going to need in order to have this amount in the future. So you still need to type in your rates. You need to know how it's compounded, and you need to know the length of time that the amount is going to be in the savings account. And then the calculation for the present value, it's important here that you use the present value chart. So take a look at page 328 to see your present value chart. And if you want to compare the two charts, you'll see that the present value charts always start with 0 point and some other long decimal. All of the amounts on the future value chart will start with a whole number. So that's the difference between the two charts, so you can be sure that you know which chart you're on by whether or not you're entering in a whole number. We're going to do the conversions of the percents and the interest periods exactly the same as we did above. So here is the 6% compounded semi-annually, so I need to divide it by 2. Semi-annually is twice a year. Change it to a percent, add some decimal places. Then go over to the term, 3 years, and we are compounded semi-annually, so I need to multiply the 3 years times 2. And so on the present value chart, you're going to be looking down the 3% column until you get to line 6. So that concludes our lecture here on the present value and future value. Be sure to use the charts they're found at the end of the chapter. future value is on page 326 and present value is on page 328.